don't want to ruin or don't want to spoil anything. So there's surmountable odds, and they find ways to surmount them. My friends. Hello and welcome into the Free Outside podcast. It has been quite a week. Had a shoot last week that went to like midnight. Was at a wedding in Salt Lake City that got back today. This episode's supposed to come out tomorrow morning. So, just scrambling over here. But there's plenty to talk about. So first off, here's our obligatory statement about Western states. I picked Jim Walmsley and Katie Scheid to win, and they did. So that's all we need to talk about that. Got some good guests coming in the future. We got that lined up. And thank you all for being here. So on today's episode, I thought I would just dive into something completely unique and crazy. So, there is, let me just go through my morning routine. So I wake up usually about 6, then I eat my meal by ReadyWise, then I watch my movie, then I read my book, and then I do my podcast, and then listen to my podcast. But the movie Free Outside that we made, it actually has a pretty crazy story, so I thought I would share that and get into that today. Actually, all these things do. Lots of hustle behind the scenes, being unique, I guess, and just a lot of thoughts and prayers along the way. So anyways, the story goes back to the days of before COVID. So I was living in Costa Rica, and then I flew home from Costa Rica and did Christmas at my parents' house, and then decided to move to Bozeman, Montana. At this point, I'd gotten into the Barkley Marathons, and I had some brand support to go after the Pacific Crest Trail record and the Appalachian Trail record. Was it crazy and possible to do in the same year? Yeah, probably. And I don't know if it was possible. But Barkley Marathons would be first. And then as the story goes, since you were probably all there, if you're able to comprehensively listen to a podcast, around mid-March, maybe, that's when COVID got serious. Like the real thing happened. Things shut down. So at that point, the Barkley Marathons was canceled. So strike one on my plan. And as sentiment grew, it seemed like resupplying logistics and just for the greater good, going after the records on the Appalachian Trail and the Pacific Crest Trail would not be the best idea. So I decided to cancel that too. And within, a week, I got a job stocking shelves at a grocery store. So college graduate going after rising in the outdoor world, figuring out ways to make it work, to stocking shelves at the grocery store. But I was in the natural food section of the grocery store. So, connecting to my outdoor and clean eating roots. So that happened. And it was a pretty low point. This is when I kind of began therapy and stuff. But really what I did was I took the plunge into more writing. I'd been writing for a few publications for a while, ranging from like Backpacker to Outside. And I submitted a piece to the Huffington Post, and they ran it. And it was about going from being a professional athlete to working at a grocery store. So that was a pretty wild thing to put out there, but went pretty well received, got a lot of emails. And this one pretty rich guy, I guess we'll leave his name out because as you can tell already, it gets a little wild. He contacted me and was like, I'd like to make a TV show. Like, can we meet or whatever? So by him meeting, he meant meet up in Vegas and have a very expensive weekend. So that's what we did. Drove down to Vegas, camped a couple times along the way. He asked how much gas was because he was going to just buy a first-class plane ticket, but it was like, nah, I want to go to Escalante, Utah, but kept gas receipts, didn't even look at them, just handed me a handful of $100 bills to cover the gas. But I had a meeting. He came up the concept. There was a producer there. We went home, and then he found a director, met with him. Then, storyboard the whole thing, all the episodes, a pitch deck, all the things. Found a crew, Actually went out to Washington, where I grew up, my hometown, and they shot some stuff there. They shot me running the Timberline Trail to have some footage, and then a whole film crew. And this rich guy, probably worth like $500 million, he bought a literal school bus and said he was going to put my face on the outside of it. So that's wild. And then the whole crew. So he hired camera crew, producers, director, sound guy, all the things that you need to make a TV show. He had them come out to Montana. I did a trail out here. They filmed the whole thing. They kind of cut together a pilot type thing. And actually, around this time is when he sent the contract. So I hadn't signed anything, kind of wild. And I had started becoming friends with the crew on this shoot. And then I heard that the crew hadn't been paid, especially the trip to Oregon and Washington and stuff. And when we were shooting out there, they hadn't received anything. So before signing the very intense contract myself, I asked him, like, why hasn't anyone been paid? And he's just like, well, because you haven't signed this. And it was like, well, that seems wrong, especially since I already did the work and you're the executive producer. So then I actually said that, and then he screamed at me on the phone and then hung up, and proceeded over the next couple weeks to scream at me and then hang up, and then ended up having to get a lawyer actually to like protect ourselves and crew and everything, and no one ever got real pay from that. Sorry, I think there's a bug on my leg. Just living outdoors here. I've slept outside in a tent 3 nights out of the last 7, so waiting. So got a lawyer. This relationship was very splintered at this point, so we moved on. It was not going to work. But while we were in the talks of doing the show, I'd given him this list of all the FKTs I was going to get this year, and I continued. The next week after getting yelled at, I got one local one out here in Montana, and then continued on and went after the Colorado Trail unsupported. And instead of just going after it unsupported like the plan was, this whole film crew, these were my friends. So we had like 2 weeks, and we jumped on a bunch of calls. We came up with kind of a general outline of the documentary we were going to do. We brought on a couple people that were hikers or runners that were going to be able to go out and capture some footage. And we had like a crew of 10, rented vehicle, got some more stuff, and the crew was just going to camp, and I was just going to do the FKT and film some selfie video of myself out there. And I had a microphone I was going to take, and like 2 pounds of external batteries to recharge everything. We just decided we could do this without an asshole executive producer. And so that's what we did. No clue what we were doing. Dylan Harris had never directed anything and kind of just went with it. He pulled it together. I pulled off the FKT on my side while trying to film myself. But it was a crazy experience because while I'm going for this record, like the goal is to get the record, the crew is trying to capture the essence of the trail, maybe a little bit drone stuff from far away. And they have their own story going on. I got my own story going on, but we don't know how each of us is capturing or filming any of the story. And so I have this little Osmo. Thought I had one around here. But it's just like pointed at me as I'm going up. One time I'm climbing up to the true Continental Divide, and I can feel that I'm going to puke, not poop. That would be a different type of film. But I could feel that I was going to puke. So I pulled it out, turned it on real quick, and I'm just like videoing myself because it's like, it's probably going to come. And if I capture this is great for the movie, capture those downtimes too. That's kind of what it was. And I tried to turn my mic on for every day or something, because as we'd kind of been told, talked to some people before we did it, that the key part of a lot of these documentaries is the sound. And so, yeah, they filmed their story. I filmed mine. We just had to trust we each were getting it done. And then at the end of the day, I had to get the FKT. I mean, it would have been a good story without it, but still had to get that 9 days, 8 hours or so, pushed it, made it happen. But then we had all this footage, and Dylan had never made a movie before. Nick had never edited something like this either. So we kind of sat on the footage a little bit, played with some trailer ideas, shopped around, asked some people, and then it was just like, well, Jason Fitzpatrick, who has worked in Hollywood as an editor for 20 plus years, he made the movie Mile and a Half, which is about through hiking the John Muir Trail, and the movie Unsupported, which I actually love, about setting the record on the John Muir Trail, which ironically I would get after we'd been working together for 2 years. So brought him on, and we went to Flagstaff, me and Dylan and him, and just sat in a house for like 3 days and cut together a rough cut of a movie. From there, it was like contacting Rob Ricardo to come up with music, and then bringing in like number of Bill Meadows for the sound and stuff like that. There's so many moving parts to a movie, and entering in it just being like, well, if this executive producer's an asshole and we don't want to work with him, well, we can do it on our own. There was a lot to learn to do on our own. So, and then bring on a colorist, and just literally everything, trying to come up with how to turn footage into an actual movie. But we successfully had a draft pretty far along. And so this is when it was like, well, what is the next step? So started contacting some not production companies, like distribution companies, to try to get it out in the world. At the same time, setting up some dates to tour the movie ourselves. So got to premiere it in Denver. That was pretty fun to finally show it to an audience. And then we took it to Portland, Bend, Bozeman, Seattle. Yeah, it was pretty fun getting to show it to people. And the coolest thing was just learning how to market something like this. It's like, well, what we'd do is I'd find a theater that looked like what we wanted. Then I would pay the money to rent it. And then it was like, just try to get people to show up. So I'd contact the newspaper, put stuff on Reddit, contact the local hiking clubs, literally anything. And I think the biggest high was we did Bend showing, Bend, Oregon, the Tower Theater, which was like pretty expensive. So it was a pretty big risk renting it. And then it pretty much sold out. Like, it was the coolest thing to have that many people showing up to laugh at the funny moments of the movie. And, well, no one probably cried, but you know what I'm saying. So it was pretty fun to get to witness it and see the evolution that way. So at the same time, this distribution company thing is going, met with a couple, picked two or all of the ones we talked to were interested, and picked the one that just seemed like the best personality and the best fit, because, you know, there's not good stuff on these companies. Like, people put in all the effort to make a movie, and then these guys want like 1% of everything. But anyways, got one, helped us get on all the platforms, and launched it in January, which has been fun because now it's finally hands off out into the world. So it's kind of the story of how the movie got made. Starts with a Huffington Post article about working at a grocery store, moves on to wined and dined in Vegas, got like a $10,000 cabana, high-rise room, pretty crazy. Not really my scene though. And then turns into filming in Montana and nobody getting paid. So I take the fall, get yelled at, get a lawyer, which was a lot of money, which sucked. It turns into doing it ourselves, which is hard, but we have to learn and we figure out everything. And then we make a movie and put it out into the world, and now Free Outside's there. And I can watch it every day while I read my book, Free Outside, and read my own website, Free Outside, while listening and making my podcast, Free Outside. So that's what's going on with the movie. You can watch it on Tubi, tubi.com, for free too right now. All right, in other news, in the last 2 weeks, I have gone backpacking in Tahoe. I have gone backpacking in the tobacco roots in Montana. Sorry, I was having a brain fart. And I have gone to a wedding in a campground in Salt Lake City. So I've gotten 3 nights in tents the last week. Also gotten some good running in. I'm thinking about going for an FKT and won't give it away, but it does have a 3-letter moniker. I think that's what you call it. And yeah, that is my summer plans. And then Wasatch 100 coming up. Okay, now I've got a game and a book recommendation. Which order should we go in? Okay, no one's here. So we're going to start with the book recommendation. This is the book I've gifted the most. Excuse me, that was a burp. I've gifted this book the most because of, I really like the leadership in it. It's a fun read. It's an adventure. It's exciting. Lots of human spirit, really cool how it's told. Also from a different time. And that book is called Endurance by Alfred Lansing. I just really like how Mr. Shackleton commands his crew. And this is when they're trying to reach the South Pole. And they run into well, actually they are surmountable. Don't want to ruin or don't want to spoil anything. So there's surmountable odds and they find ways to surmount them. But you're going to have to read the story to figure it out. But it's really cool, the dynamics, how he commands his crew, how they make it out and survive through a winter in literal Antarctica when nothing's really there. Everyone thinks they're dead. So highly recommend this book. And now let's just close out the podcast today with a game. Okay, this is how this game is going to work. I am going to read 10 clues and you try to guess what these clues are about as I read them. Each clue will get more specific. So it should get easier as clues go on. I think that's clear. And if not, whatever. Okay, clue 1 of this new game. This item is commonly used. Very generic, see? Number 2, you can wear it. Clue 3, you could consider it protective. Clue 4, this item is popular. Clue 5, it often comes in pairs. Clue 6, it can be found in various shapes and sizes. Clue 7, some people wear this item to reduce something. Clue 8, it is most protective and needed when there's snow around. There we go. Clue 9, polarization is a common feature. Clue 10, a popular brand rhymes with day can. All right. Did you get it? How many clues did it take you to get it in? If not, hit that back 15, 20, 30, 40 second thing and go back and get it, because here comes the answer. Dun dun dun. Sunglasses. Essential, protective, face wear, what you really need out there. And that was our inaugural game. So we're going to keep this podcast fairly short. I've been home like 3 days out of the last 14. Just everything I do to keep these rolling. This will be going up tomorrow. Western States just happened. You can read all about that everywhere else on the internet. Look pretty cool. Course records all around. And my air fryer just went off. So with that, it is time for me to sign off. And we'll be back on Friday with a good guest. But until then, stay elite, my friends. Okay, goodbye.